You live now. Hold on.
Hey world, how you doing? It's your girl, Tamika Harper, aka Georgia Me, and we are in our fourth session of Warrior Workshop Wednesdays. You know, this is Tamika Festival 12, Elevation Nation, rising to our higher selves. And one thing that I know in our community that we lack and we need desperately is financial literacy. Yeah, you know, black people love to hit a lick, but when you hit the lick, you don't know what to do with it, so you put it right back into the oppressor's hands. And rarely do you spend it with your own people. Today, we're going to talk to you about financial investments, what to do with your money, what you can do, you know, starting out simple practices to, you know, further your financial portfolio and your legacy. We always leaving bills. You know what I'm saying? That's what we leave. Papa died, and we got an insurance bill, we got a funeral bill, we got bills from old creditors. No, we need better education, and this young man has blessed us with the opportunity to learn. I introduce to you Mr. Thomas Tipton. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much, Tamika, for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of the Tamika Fest and just to be able to share something that I'm so passionate about.
How long have you been in the financial world?
So I started out as a financial advisor in '06. '06. So I've been in the financial world for quite a while.
Over 15 years. That's what's up. That means he know what he's talking about, people. So what led you to do that though? Like, of all the jobs in the world, what led you into the financial world?
Well, you know, I knew how to make money. I just didn't know what to do with my money. And I got tired of really being broke, right? You know, just living paycheck to paycheck. And I said, well, let me just kind of learn a little bit more about finance just as a way to, you know, invest my own money. And then my family started saying, hey, can you invest our money? And I started doing that. And then I realized that I needed to be licensed, and the rest is history. You know, I met my mentor on a plane as I was studying for some financial exams because I was in school for finance. And he said, basically, when we land, I want you to come to my office. And, you know, he reminded me of my uncle, and, you know, he gave me a chance, and I started out as a stockbroker, you know, just trading stocks. And then that transitioned to going into investment advising.
Okay, well, I'm just going to lay back and learn and write my questions. You all who are out there, get your questions together. I will relay them to Thomas, and we here to learn, brother.
All right. Okay, so, all right, so let me go to my screen and we'll start the presentation.
It's not up on YouTube yet. Okay. Okay, so, all right, so,
Okay, so once again, I'm super excited to just, you know, be in a position to share with you something that, you know, I've become so passionate about. And one of the things that, there it is, you know, one of the things that this time is actually giving us is to kind of reset. So one of the things that I started looking at is, you know, the great reset, you know, being able to create new financial patterns. You know, I believe that this is really a great opportunity for us to take a closer look at our lives. And, you know, so many things have stopped. And, you know, when we're out of this current climate, what will our lives look like? You know, what will be our new spending patterns, our new saving patterns, and or our investment patterns? You know, can we utilize sorry about that. Can we actually utilize this time to, you know, set ourselves up for how we want our finances to actually look in the future? for most of us, we're not taught financial literacy, at home, at school, or in our communities. How does money work, right? And because we don't really know the rules, we're not winning in a way that we actually could be. So think about the government, right? So the government, they basically know how to, make money off our money. Of course, the banks know how to make money off our money, and companies know how to make money off our money. The question becomes, how do we actually make money off of our own money as well? So when we think about the government make money by collecting taxes. So you go out, you work, they basically collect taxes. They collect taxes when you spend money, when you earn money, when you die, but the government basically collect taxes. And then they also charge for services. Now, when you think about the banks, they basically make money off of interest. So they charge interest. So for instance, if you go to school and you take out a student loan, they're charging between 3% and 6%. So you take out a $10,000 loan, you're paying basically $300 in interest over, annually. You go and you take out a personal loan, you're looking at between 8 and 12%. So now on that same $10,000, you're basically paying anywhere from $800 to $1,200 annually. And it's just a matter of how long that you keep that loan determines how much interest that you're actually paying on that loan. And then, of course, credit cards, a lot of times they'll offer that, 0% down for 12 or 18 months. And then after that introductory period, you're looking at 12 to 14% on average, but sometimes even up to 29, 30%. So you have a credit card, that same $10,000 balance, you're paying anywhere from $1,200 to $3,000 in interest alone, right? And banks also make their money by charging fees. Then when you think about corporations, corporations, they make their money by, selling a product or basically providing a service, and then oftentimes at the end of the month, we're trying to figure out, where did all my money go? And it went towards the government and taxes, it went to, banks and interest, and it went to corporations. And a better question is, where do I want my money to go? Because we do have choices, right? And so how are those choices actually made? So I study behavioral finance, and that's one of the things that I teach is behavioral finance. And, behavioral financial advice, it's actually nothing new. It stands beside traditional finance. Financial advice has been based, largely on a Nobel Prize winning economy theory model, right? So you might not be familiar with it, but it's called modern portfolio theory. And, all the things that we've learned about those theories are still important. However, they are all based on the premise that investors will make rational decisions without bias or base decisions on actually risk and reward potential. But in reality, people frequently behave irrational, right? So irrational behaviors, they are often stimulated by emotions. And so those emotions are either positive or negative. And behavioral financial advice, it helps understand this reality that people often behave irrational and in a biased manner. Even as an investment advisor, we want, people to act rational in a irrational environment, right? So as opposed to, but we understand that people are going to act irrational as well and in a biased manner. So, financial behavior, believe it or not, has the greatest impact on your finances, more than most people realize. So much of financial success has to do with a person's behavior more so than any investments that are selected or any other factor, right? When you think about it, it's easy as an investment advisor to align, investment strategies and investment plans with your values and your goals. However, the challenge becomes aligning a person's spending and saving behavior with those same values and those same goals. And that part is often overlooked. So one of the things that I focus on is financial behavior. I look at the financial patterns. How are you earning your money? How are you spending your money? Are you saving your money? And are you investing your money? And so tonight, I actually invite you to do the same thing. Take an active approach and look at all of your patterns. And now you get an idea of what your behavior actually looks like. So I want you to be prepared for the possibility of long life, or a life that is prematurely shortened. Be prepared for a healthy life or one that's not so healthy. Good times and in strong markets, or hard times and in weak markets. A big part of what I do is to help my clients make rational decisions in the presence of competing and difficult to deal with emotions. And behavioral financial advice, it increases the effective usage of the financial plan or whatever strategies that's actually put in place. So in essence, I help prepare you for the certainty of uncertainty, the experience, and how the experience is being perceived. And there's actually three components to behavioral financial advising. The first, of course, is traditional finance and economics, right? How economics work, the financial systems. The second is actually, psychology and behavior. And then thirdly is neuroscience. And neuroscience, it involves the study of the brain itself. It sounds complicated, but if you break it down to simple terms, it basically means that our very brain and our emotions can actually prevent us from making financial decisions. We can't change our unconscious emotions and habits directly because oftentimes we don't even know what they are, right? We don't take the time to think about what we're thinking about. So we're often unaware of what we're thinking or how we're feeling and how it's actually affecting us. And when we live in ignorance of our values, our goals, and our plans, we are more likely to be derailed by emotional traps and or just destructive habits with our money. So even with neuroscience, it's estimated that we have between 80 and 90 thoughts a day. And so when you think about these thoughts that we actually have in a day, they are based on our beliefs. They're actually recycled thoughts. And, our beliefs, they basically lead us to having these thoughts throughout the day, or just, our thoughts in general. And then oftentimes, based on the thoughts that we're having, they create, emotions. And then, of course, these emotions drive us to have some type of action or inaction, right? And then that basically produce the results. And oftentimes our results are directly in tune with actually what we believe, right? So I have a small exercise. And matter of fact, it's a quick exercise, 5 seconds to be exact. So I want you to write down or think about your top 5 values. Okay, so for a lot of people, it's difficult to do, right? Of course, your values will change, over time or as your situations change. So one of the things that I do is I have my clients go through values, right? And so we start out with, narrowing it down to 15 values, and then we take those 15 and then we narrow those 15 down to 10, and we take those 10 and we narrow it down to 5. And so now you basically have your core values. Typically, investment advisors or financial professionals, they usually start with money, right? They usually start with discretionary income. They start with your finances, where we actually start with value. Having your values in the forefront helps you make decisions that are in alignment with your core values. And people who reflect on their values before, making a decision of almost any kind, including financial decisions, they actually make better decisions. Value reflections, they don't necessarily make you smarter, but value reflection will make you more rational. And so when we think about our core values, they basically, you set goals, but your goals are actually being set on values because you're putting those values up front. And then now you're able to identify the behaviors that's actually needed to hit those goals that you've established based on your values. So for instance, somebody core value might be adventure, family, health, spirituality, as well as wealth, right? And oftentimes wealth, financial security, that tends to be at the top of most people's lists. So with that being said, let's take a look at some financial behavior, or as I like to call them, financial patterns. So, we go to work and, all of a sudden we have earned income, we get that salary, we get the money, but oftentimes what we do with it is we buy liabilities, and liabilities is something that's actually taking money out of your pocket. And so now you have these liabilities and you have these expenses, and oftentimes you don't have anything left over to do any type of investing with, right? So now you don't really have any assets, you just have liabilities. You have things that are constantly taking money out of your pocket. Whereas what we like to do now is basically you have the same setup, but instead now you put something to the side to actually acquire assets, whether those assets are real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, intellectual property, because we know you're still going to have the liabilities. But at least now you actually have multiple streams of income. You have income that's coming in from your assets, and you combine that with the income that you have from your job, or the income that you have from your, from work, right? Your earned income. And now you're able to reduplicate all over again, acquire more assets. And if you want to, acquire more liabilities, that's great, because it's about creating a system to where your assets can generate enough income to cover your liabilities. Now you're freeing up yourself so that you can actually do whatever it is that you want to do. I know sometimes we work, at places that, where we're making good salary, or we're making, good income, but maybe that's not necessarily what we want to be doing. But if you start peeling some of that money off and start putting it towards building assets, eventually those assets should create some income for you to the point where now they can start paying for your liabilities. So when we look at that, if we start looking at things differently, right, we talked about the government. So ordinary income and interest income is taxed differently than capital gain income, right? So you become a different person when you have assets that's generating income, because now you're not taxed the same. Capital gains is taxed less than ordinary income. So if majority of your income is coming in from assets, you're paying less in taxes because it's based on capital gains. That's why Warren Buffett said he paid less in taxes than his admin does, because all of his income is based on capital gains, where his admin, their taxes is based on ordinary income. So one of the ways that you can increase your money is by paying less in taxes. So one of the things that you can actually do is invest in a tax professional, somebody that you can actually sit down with, and they can kind of go over the different opportunities that you might have to reduce your taxes. Now you think about banks, right? So we talked about earlier that banks, they make their money off interest, but they also do pay interest. So when you think about traditional savings accounts, they typically pay less than 0.1%. So if you have an emergency fund set up, and just say you have $5,000 in that emergency fund account, annually, off of 0.1%, you've made about $5. However, there's also what's called high yield savings account. And typically high yield savings accounts are paying anywhere from 1% to 2%. Now you take that same $5,000, you put it in a high yield savings account, and now you're making $75 annually as opposed to $5. Now, you can check and see if your bank has a high yield savings account. You can go online. I don't work for American Express, but I do like American Express because they do not have an account minimum where you can start off with whatever amount that you actually have. And right now, you know, they actually are paying 1.5%. And then when you think about corporations, you know, one of the things is to investigate and invest in what you are investing in, right? So, you know, some of us might be on an Apple, right? We're on Zoom or we're on YouTube. And by the way, YouTube is actually owned by Google. And so, you know, as companies that you shop at or companies that you do business with, as they make money and they grow, there is perhaps an opportunity for you to make money with them by purchasing that company's stock. Now, when you purchase a company's stock, you actually become a shareholder and you actually own a piece of the company. Now, you know, are stocks right for you? Well, it varies, right? Because one of the things that we have to look at is the principle. How much do you actually have to invest? You know, another thing is your objective, right? Is your objective for income? Is it for growth? Or is it for both? Time horizon. When do you need that money back by? Do you need it next week? Do you need it 5 years from now? Do you need it 20 years from now? And then your risk tolerance. How much of that principle can you stand to lose, right? Can you sleep at night if the market goes down, you know, 2% or 5%, right? So having an understanding of how much you actually have to invest, what your objective is, your time horizon, as well as your risk tolerance, that's a good indication of are stocks right for you. And then, of course, what type of stocks are right for you? So there's 4 categories that stocks typically fall in. So you have value stocks. Now, all stocks basically carry a risk. Value stocks carry the least amount of risk of the categories in terms of stocks. Then you have consistent growth stocks. You also have high growth stocks. And then you have speculative stocks that carry the most risk out of all the categories. And so one of the things that I'm going to actually take you through now is it's on Yahoo Finance, you know, because knowledge is key. So how do you read the stocks? You know, oftentimes I have clients and they have the slightest idea of what they're even looking at, and it's all so foreign to them. So I want to at least be able to, you know, share with you what you're actually looking at.
Thomas, can you put yourself in the video too this time?
Yep.
Okay. We want to see you too.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So can you still see my, let me find my mouse.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my mouse right up here where it says the S&P 500. So the S&P 500, the Dow 30, the NASDAQ, as well as the Russell 2000, these are all basically indices. And the main one that oftentimes we're looking at is what they call the Dow 30. So the Dow 30 are 30 companies that basically kind of give you an indication of how the overall economy or the overall stock market is doing. So I'm going to click on the Dow 30. And then within the Dow 30, you have the summary, the chart, the conversations, historical data, options, and components. So if you click on components, you get an opportunity to see the 30 companies that make up the Dow index, okay? And so if we just click on Procter & Gamble, you get a chance to see how Procter & Gamble is actually performing. So here you have the name of the company. PG is the ticker symbol, right? So if you don't know the ticker symbol and you know the company name, you can always put that in the quote lookup, okay? So here we see that Procter & Gamble, it closed at $117 a share. Now, the previous close, which would be yesterday or the last day that the stock market was open, it closed at $116.89 a share. And then this morning, when the stock market opened up, it opened up at $117.52 a share. Now, the bid and the ask, this is basically what you will pay for it, and this is what you would sell it for, right? So this is something that takes a little bit more to understand. It's a little bit more than just buying and selling right here. The day's range kind of gives you the indication of what it's traded at for today. So the lowest that it traded today was $115.08, and the highest was $118.04. And then the 52-week range, this gives you how it's done over the past year. So in the past 52 weeks, the lowest that it's traded at is $94.34. The highest that is traded is $128.09. So you can actually see that the 117 is trading closer to its 52-week high than it is to its 52-week low. This was today's volume. That means how many shares was actually traded. And on average, this is how many shares was actually traded. So you can look at it and say, well, less volume or less shares was traded today than on average. Then we go up here to market cap. So market cap, you know that this is a $289 billion company, right? The beta, that's, this is getting into a little bit more of really starting to understand, but that's just the correlation that it has with the market itself. Then you have the PE ratio, and that's just how many times it's trading times its earnings. So it's trading 63 times what it's actually earning. And then here you have the earnings date. So the next time is going to be somewhere between July 28th and August 3rd, where they're going to actually report their quarterly earnings. And then here, if a company is actually paying a dividend, it lets you know how much of a dividend that they're paying. Now, dividend is additional income. So if you own a share of Procter & Gamble, over the course of a year, your dividend is $3.16 per share that you're actually getting, okay? Now, something to go up here, because another important thing is to take a look at the company profile. So when you go to the company's profile, you want to take a look at the company description. What do they do? How do they make their money? And this is very important because you want to be able to understand how a company makes their money. Will they continue to be able to make money using that same business model? But that's something that you want to know. Something else that you want to take a look at are the finances, right? So this is what we call part of the fundamentals. So when it comes to finances, the first thing you'll look at is the income statement. So right here, we're looking at total revenue. And you look at 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, is the company growing their earnings, or is it going up or is it going down, and how much, right? You want to know, is that company continuing to grow or not? And then this is something that's very important. This is the interest expense. How much interest are they paying on their debt, right? So we know that companies have debt as well. And we want to be able to take a look and see how much are they paying on their debt. And then overall, what is their net income? What is their net profit? Okay. And then we go to the balance sheet. And the reason that the balance sheet is important is because you want to know what their assets and their liabilities are. So now you get a chance to see their cash on hand, right? So this is $2 billion in cash, and you see that their cash over time has decreased, right? And then you get a chance to take a look at their total assets, total current assets, and total assets as well. And then you come down and now you look at the liabilities, and you want to see, okay, well, let's take a look and see what their liabilities are. This long-term debt, you know that that's a debt that they actually have, and that's the interest that they're paying on the debt that we actually saw in the income statement. And then you want to just take a look at their liabilities, right? Their total liabilities and their total assets, and kind of see where they fall, right? So we know that their total assets is more than their total liabilities, okay? And so that's, you know, a simple way that, and so you can also take a look at, sometimes they'll show you who their competitors are as well.
I just want to let you know that the people are saying, thank you, Thomas. This is very helpful, just to let you know.
Oh, you're welcome. And so, you know, stocks are not the only financial vehicles, right? So yeah, you have stocks, but you also have CDs, you have bonds, corporate and government bonds. You have exchange traded funds, you have mutual funds, you have life insurance, you have annuities, you have retirement accounts. So a 401k just means that you work for the private sector, I'm sorry. 403b that you work for the public sector, and 457 that you are government, right? And then you have the college plans, the 529s, and et cetera. There's, you know, different types of financial vehicles out there that actually exist. And so, you know, to kind of recap, you know, one of the things that is really, really important is how you think and how you feel about money, because ultimately it impacts what you do with your money, right? And then value alignment. Value alignment puts your values in the forefront. And what it does is it allows you to set goals, and it allows you to check and see what your behavior is. And it's all based on value alignment. And just to think about the fact that we have between 80 and 90,000 thoughts a day, now you're starting to think more about what's important to you. And now all of a sudden those thoughts are creating those, you know, feelings or those emotions that's creating this action or inaction that's producing these results. And now they're all in alignment with actually what you value. The other thing is to, you know, keep more of your money, you know, and how do you keep more of your money? And that's taking, you know, looking at various, you know, ways to, you know, reduce what you're paying in taxes or reduce what you're paying in interest. And then, of course, you know, make your money make money. How do you take some of your money and start buying assets so that those same assets could start, you know, paying for those liabilities? And then, of course, homework. You know, one of the things that I challenge everybody to do is take a look at your January and your February bank statements, your credit card statements, and then compare them to your April and your May statements. And what has changed? What has remained the same? You know, what did you think you could never live without that you're actually living without? You know, and then ask yourself, what behavior or what patterns are you willing to go back to? You know, are you going to go back to buying Starbucks? Or are you going to go back to making coffee at home, right? Because your non-financial decisions ultimately affect and impact your financial decisions. And so with that, you know, I just wanted to say thank you, you know, for, you know, allowing me this opportunity to share with you. My website it's under construction right now, but it should be live next week, by the end of next week. And it's, thewealthsystems.com. And you can definitely email me at info@thewealthsystems.com. And, if you want to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, it's Thomas Tipton. But I don't post anything financially on those sites. And that's just because of compliance. If I do decide to share on those platforms, then I have to share all of that information with the broker dealer. So I just choose not to have my social media in that format. So.
Well, I thank you, Thomas, for all of that information. I have a few questions myself. Let me get back to this YouTube so I can see if anybody else. That was Ebony Pitney who was thanking you for, Ebony Gordon. That's my best friend since 11th grade. She did get married and stuff. We don't get married, Black people. But anyway, I have a question about life insurance. I thought you got life insurance for yourself. Like, how is that an investment?
Well, so there's two types of life insurance, right? So you have temporary life insurance, which is called term, and then you have permanent life insurance. And so within permanent life insurance, there's 4 types of permanent life insurance. So you have whole life, you have universal life, you have index universal life, and then you have variable universal life. And so each one of those carry within themselves a financial component or a financial vehicle in terms of cash value. Now they work differently. So it's, understanding what's going to work best for you. And so what I mean by a financial vehicle inside of it, just take index universal life for an example. They set a floor. So the floor might be 0.5%. And they set a ceiling that might be 15%. And then they credit your account interest based on what the stock market does. So if the stock market is up 6%, they credit your account 6% worth of interest. If it's at 15%, they give you the 15. Just say if it's at 30, they're going to cap you at 15. Now, if the stock market drops below 0, they're still going to credit you 0.75 or whatever that floor is, whether it be 0.5, 0.75, or 1%. So over time, you have interest accumulating in that financial vehicle. Now, the reason that they set those limits is so that you don't exceed and go past that corridor, because if you do, they view it as you're no longer using it as an insurance policy. You're using it solely as a financial vehicle, and now it becomes an endowment and it becomes a taxable event.
But I still don't. How do you get money from it?
How do you get money from it? So there's what's called living benefits that you have access to. So there's an account that's actually separate from the life insurance. So just think of it as life insurance bucket that has your death benefit. So a part of the money is going for your death benefit, when you die, and then a part of it is going to a living benefit that you can utilize while you're alive. Okay. So if you look at some of what the executive compensation packages are, they actually purchase insurance, they overfund it, and they use that bucket that's available for you to utilize while you're alive. Whether you want to take $10,000, just say if your account accumulated $30,000 and you wanted to take $20,000 out and use that as a down payment on the house, you could do that. And life insurance is the only vehicle that you can pull the money out and it's not taxable. Okay. So your gains is not taxable. Like, for instance, if you had generated that same amount of money in a brokerage account in where you have stocks, you pull that $20,000 out, you're being taxed, capital gain taxes, right? Oh. If you have that money set up in a retirement account, so a retirement account is tax deferred. So what depends, because they do have what's called a Roth or a traditional, right? So a traditional is tax deferred. So you put your money in that retirement account, just say a 401k, it's growing. but you're not paying taxes on any of that until you start to pull it out. Now, once you pull it out, you start paying taxes on that amount. Life insurance is different because it has a financial vehicle inside of it, but it's not necessarily looked at as a financial vehicle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. What's a Roth?
So a Roth account it's the same thing. It's a retirement account. The only difference is that you're paying taxes on the money that you put in there prior to, right? So it's pre-tax dollars versus post-tax dollars. So if you look at it like this, so if you have a traditional account, you have $1, the whole dollar is going into that traditional retirement account. If you have a Roth account, you're being taxed on that dollar first. So just say you're paying 30% taxes. Now you only have 70 cents going into that account because you've already paid taxes on it. So you have less money to buy those financial vehicles that are inside of that retirement account. So you have a whole dollar that's buying financial vehicles, or you have 70 cents that's buying financial vehicles. However, once you pull the money out, you've already paid taxes on it. So it becomes a matter of, do you think that you're going to be in a higher tax bracket later on in life, or do you think you're going to be in a lower tax bracket later on in life, right? So right now, taxes are pretty much at an all-time low. Now, moving forward, will taxes increase? And if taxes do increase, would you rather pay taxes on your money now while they're low, or pay taxes on it later when they're high? That's like the best way to explain it.
I have a question from Divine Rhymes. He says, do you trade in the foreign exchange market or have any information you can share about it?
I don't. I have colleagues who do, so I can definitely get that information, but that's just not something that I do.
Okay. And Kalina Harrison said she has a couple questions. She says, first off, she says, excellent workshop, brother. How do you get in the habit of paying yourself first? And she says, what's the entrepreneurship version of a 401k?
Okay. So to answer the first question first, how do you get in the habit of paying yourself first, right? It's the same money. And so even if it means just taking a small amount, even if it means just $5 or $10, and just start putting that into a separate account, right? And just make sure you do that before you pay anybody else. So yeah, we know that you have a mortgage, we know you have rent, we have car note, we know that. But as soon as you get that check, soon as you get that money deposited into your account, set up another account. And even if it's only $5, now you've started to build the habit and build momentum, or take a look and see, what can you pay yourself first? And I think that's how you'll start to get into the habit of doing that on a regular basis. Now, in terms of an entrepreneurial account, they'll work the same way. You can actually set up a 401k for yourself. It just allows you to put more money into it, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you have the ability to contribute as an employee, and you have the ability to contribute as the employer. So you have the ability to put more into that account, and then the limits are a lot higher in terms of a business, right? And what you're allowed to contribute from a business standpoint.
Okay, and you can do that for your employees too?
Yeah, you can set it up for your employees as well.
Okay. She says, let me start that today. I always start and stop paying myself first. And she said, thank you.
And just to kind of recap a little bit, I highly recommend just creating a high yield savings account and then just funneling that money into it, whether, like you said, whether it's $5, $10, $20 or whatever. And I think that's a good way to start to do two things at the same time, because now you're looking at the standpoint that I'm getting more money on my money and I'm putting money away.
What's the smallest amount that you can start with as far as investing?
Wow. I would say $1, but typically it's probably going to be a little bit more than that. And it's just a matter of how are you going to start out? You know, if you're looking at stocks, because you have ETFs that have a lot of the stocks in it, excuse me, you know, and so, you know, an ETF might be a good way to start out because an ETF will give you access to Amazon, Apple, Zoom without you having to pay, you know, $100 a share or $200 a share. An ETF might be the way to go.
Okay.
And an ETF is just basically an exchange traded fund or a mutual fund, right? You can look at some mutual funds and do the same. Mutual funds has, you know, some fees associated with it. So definitely look at the mutual fund because you don't want the fees to eat up your investments.
Okay. So would it be better? I mean, I know it'd be better to, you know, hire someone like you, and we do want you to give your information, but what's the most trusted online trading service that you know of?
Wow. I mean, there's quite a few. I'm biased because I used to trade for E-Trade. Okay. So I worked at E-Trade. I was a stockbroker at E-Trade. So I'm biased. I still have my E-Trade account. But you have TD Ameritrade, you have Scottrade. You know, most of the platforms are all the same per se. The governance of those platforms are all the same, whether it's you're going through, you know, E-Trade or whether you're going through Scottrade or whether you go through a broker dealer, like you go sit down with Fidelity or Prudential or somebody like that. They're pretty much all using a broker dealer to do the same things.
Is there any Black trading companies?
There are. Ariel is one. That was the one that I started with. Wow, like 20 years ago. But I bought my first mutual fund through Ariel Investments.
Okay, that's good to know. You know, we like to spend money with the people. You know what I'm saying? So tell the people how they can get in contact with you again. And if we want to tip you in Cash App, PayPal, whatever, you know, I just want you to let the people know if they want to reach out to you for financial advice.
Okay, so my social media is the same. It's just Thomas Tipton, Tipton, nothing fancy. Like I said, the wealth systems should be up by the end of next week, and you can definitely, you know, send me an email at info@thewealthsystems.com. And like I said, or just, you know, send me a message on, you know, Instagram or Facebook.
I got another question. Do you give lessons or sessions on QuickBooks or stock market investing? I'm with Robinhood right now.
So coming soon will actually be a course that will go in detail about some of the things that I just shared, because I think it's so important for us to know what we're looking at. So it's one thing to have somebody manage your money, but I always tell people, you need to manage the person that's managing your money as well. And you need to know and understand what they're talking about because it's your money.
Yes.
And so I will be coming out with a course that's geared specifically towards everything that we've talked about will be inside of that course. It'll go a little bit more into behavioral finance, how you think and how you feel about money. You know, just for instance, if you think money is hard to keep, you're going to have these thoughts that you don't even know exist about money is hard to keep. Then you're going to have these feelings, and all of a sudden you're going to find yourself acting out these thoughts and feelings. And the results is you don't know where your money went, because it's all in alignment with actually what you believe. So at the core is understanding, what do you believe about money? What do you believe about finances? What are the myths that has been preventing you from excelling or exceeding financially? Because those myths, those beliefs are holding you back as well, right? So not necessarily all about your money, but a big part is also about how you think and how you feel about it as well.
True. Kalina spoke on the mind state earlier. Divine Rhymes wanted to know, he says, thank you for sharing all these gems. I want to know, how can a person establish business credit?
So business credit is not my lane. But business credit, it's basically creating, accounts. Like for instance, you have your business, you go down to one of the banks or you open up and now all of a sudden you start establishing credit that way. But that would be, having a banker or having somebody that could really go into detail on the best ways to establishing business credit.
Okay, well, I'm getting all this love for you. You are the real McCoy. 2020, I'm taking my finances to the next level. Many thanks. Just thank you and love and everything. And I just, and Kalina says, excited to learn more about your course. And we will promote it when you get it together, Thomas, because we want everybody to be able to make their money make money.
I appreciate it, because that's what it's all about.
I know, and I appreciate you for, being a part of my vision. I know you ain't know what it was, like, what the heck talking about? But I know that it was essential that we get some knowledge, some core values on how to use our money, because we don't know as a people. No one teaches us. No one comes in to teach us.
Right.
We have economics, and we barely understand that in high school. Most of us failed it. And they wasn't teaching what you're teaching. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to say thank you. What else you want to say?
Well, if you think about it from this standpoint, the way it's designed, if they teach you about money in school, in your communities, then you don't need the professionals, right? Because now you're able to do it by yourself and you're able to build. And then that's less money that they have of your money. So when you start looking at it like that, that's why they don't teach it in schools. That's why it's not taught in the cities, because they really don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Because if you know, now you have more of your own money, and that's less of their money. That's less of your money that they actually have
access to and control. So I'm just glad that we made this happen. Shout out to my brother Abyss for the hookup. I saw you at the Jimmy Carter Library for his Black History program. And I was like, I want that more extended. And you said that to children, giving us a leg up. And that's when we should start financial responsibility and literacy when they're children, period. Like we should be, every Christmas you should have a bond or be investing in something instead of spending $50 or $100 on bull that's going to break by February. You know what I'm saying? If we can implement that into our children's nature so that they know, I've had stocks since I was 5. That's what, you know what I'm saying? So
and to show them both, right? To show them that there's nothing wrong with buying a Monopoly game. There's nothing wrong with buying, your latest, Mortal Kombat or whatever. But you also want to have assets. There's, because what's the whole purpose of going to work and, getting all of this, assets if you don't enjoy it with some of the liabilities, right? So being able to show them both.
I appreciate that. And I'm glad that's what we hear. We all about balance. My folk was raised Methodist. We party Saturday night, but we go to church on Sunday morning. You know what I'm saying? we don't play that game. I thank you so much. Everybody out there, we had a good crowd. And I thank you for, all y'all who split the screen, all the people who came on YouTube, asked questions. I thank you, Thomas, for all this amazing knowledge that you were excellent. I understood what you said. You was a good teacher. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I just drift off. I thank you. I thank you so much. We got our next session coming up in a little while. So come back at 8 o'clock. And my session is all about spirit and homage. How? Oh, spirit and homage. First off, I'm gonna tell the people about who we honoring and how you need to have your spirit right in everything that you do. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, your mind and our mind state. I am only who I am because of how limitless my mind is. You feel me? So I thank you. And if you need me for anything, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, barbecues, go back outside. I'm there for you, Thomas.
All right. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Peace. So to all the people, we are done. We are going to taking a break. Go get you something to drink, get you something to eat. And we'll be back at 8 o'clock. Peace.